approve those. And then as soon as that link is up there, then we will keep going with the meeting here. Let's see one more. All right, so thanks for logging on today for this meeting. I don't really see this meeting being too terribly long. We haven't played maybe one game since the last time we met, so not very often we have meetings like this where we made lots of big decisions last year where we went through and set new classifications and leagues and everything else, and nobody used them. So probably not a whole lot of information to go over this year, but we'll get rolling through the few things we do have. The one thing I do want to let everybody know up front is today's meeting is not really going to be about this 21 season. The calendar and those dates and things like that are not set by this committee. That's set by CDPHE, and so how that's going to look is already set. So we will make the best lemonade we can out of the lemons we've got. We'll get through this year, and then we'll all come back nice and refreshed after like 3 weeks off in August and be ready to go again. So gonna be a crazy next 6 months, but we'll make the best of it we can. But again, thanks for being here. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Judd. He can go through, he'll be leading our meeting for us, and we'll walk us through this process and we'll get going. So Richard, go ahead.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Adam. Appreciate it. Thank you everybody for being here. I know we're all busy with just a few days to go before season C starts, and obviously wrapping up season B, which seemed to be one of the quickest seasons of all time. Started and ended within minutes, it felt like. But I want to take this moment and thank all of you. I know we've all been inundated with those emails, and I'm sure if you took the time to read them, I skimmed them to see what was added each time, and I got kind of a laugh at it each time. But I also want to take this opportunity to appreciate Adam. I know they get 10 and 20 times more than we get regarding this year. So thank you to everybody at CHSAA for that. And with that, Sam, if you are there, we will have you do a roll call, please, before we get to the approval of the minutes.
Absolutely. Good morning, everybody. So here we go. Richard Judd.
Present.
Wes Smock.
Present.
Leanne Thiessen.
Present.
Chantel Pedler. No. Craig Auckland.
Present.
Martha Richards. No. And Dick Baines.
Dick's is on there. Looks like he's just
I
muted.
see him there. All right.
Excellent. Thank you very much. The minutes, as Adam said, were in the chat, open up in a Google Doc. Looks like Dixon and Craig and I were the only ones that were at last year's meeting that are present here today. And it seems, well, that was over a year ago or close to it. So, you know, if you see anything that looks odd from last year, please go through them. Otherwise, we'll need a motion and a second to approve these minutes, and that can come from anybody but me.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Craig. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Leanne. Any changes? I think it's all pretty straightforward, something we've seen already. We'll do this, we'll do this. Do you need an actual number, Adam, or can we do a vote?
No, just do thumbs up. We're fine.
Okay. All in favor of approving the minutes from the January 15, 2020 girls lacrosse meeting, please give a thumbs up. Thank you. All opposed? We'll consider those unanimous. Excellent. Thank you, everybody. Rolling along. Postseason dates for next year, 2022. Let's hope we're on a normal schedule. Adam, can you tell us what those might look like?
Yes, I'm pulling those up right now here. So for 2022 right now, the finals are set for girls lacrosse to be on May 26th. One thing I'm wanting to look at real quick. So that would be, that'll be before Memorial Day. Memorial Day that year is going to be on Monday the 30th. So we would be finishing up before Memorial Day. So wanted to see if that works, if we want to make any changes to that. If we like that week right there, making sure everything is done before Memorial Day. The way the schedule is built currently is that would be, let me double check one thing here. Yep, so that would be a Thursday. So we'd be looking at doing semifinals probably on Tuesday if we were to keep the current status of how we do things. Again, there's a few changes we could make. We also run into having soccer, also having boys lacrosse and state track and baseball and everything else, all trying to finish up there. So that's where for the maximum amount of exposure, we moved girls lacrosse to the Thursday night finals as opposed to on the weekends. Again, we can make changes if we want to. That's where I wanted to bring it up on how we want to do semifinals, if there's something we wanted to do differently there as far as the dates. And then as you can see on the agenda, the next piece will actually be to talk through what those semifinals would look like.
Well, I do know from a historical standpoint that when we at one point talked about putting either the championship or the semifinals over Memorial Day, there was a lot of pushback from the coaches and the lacrosse community in general, just based on, I am one that would never say to advocate to work around club, but I know that's a big club weekend. And I think if we can try to avoid that Memorial Day weekend, that would be in the best interest of all of us. I like that Thursday date, but I also, looking ahead at the agenda, if we're going to put all 4 semifinals on a neutral site, we probably need to look at a Saturday for that, I would imagine. Yes.
Well, so I think that's part of the question is, do we want to put all 4 semifinals somewhere, or do we want to go just a 4A semifinal and a 5A semifinal at 2 different neutral sites? Or secondly, do we want to move semifinals just to the high seed hosts? There's several different variables there that we can look at doing. So that's kind of where that conversation was. It has traditionally been where semifinals have been at the same place as the finals, but that was just 2 games and then a 3rd game for finals. And now we've doubled the number of games. So that may not make the most sense. So looking at, could we do 2 semifinals at location A, 2 semifinals at location B, or do we want to go with a single site and have 4 games there today? Then that does render us to need to use a Saturday.
Thoughts on
If
that?
we did that, we'd have to start playoffs a little bit earlier because we would be losing that Saturday would normally be where kind of a quarterfinals would fall. And so that we're pushing our playoffs up a week, which is fine. We can adjust the regular season by a week if we needed to and make a few adjustments there. But that's really kind of the question, is how we want to do that.
I like the idea of the 24th and 2 separate sites.
I think, if you're just looking in the metro area, we have enough large stadiums where we could do that. I've got legacy stadiums over here behind my house, and then we can go, so something like that, or something, a Stutler Bowl, or going over into, you can go down to Douglas County, we go into Jeffco if we get a nice weekend, and we can use one of those grass fields. And we've got several different options just here locally where we can put some stuff. Depending on the splits, we could have a 4A in Colorado Springs and 5A in Denver. They don't have to both be in Denver necessarily. So there's several options we can go with that if that's what we wanted to do. And then the rental prices on a high school stadium are not the equivalent to renting the DU stadium. So that's going to be a financial piece for us as well for semifinals to do it that way.
Is the idea to have the finals at Peter Barton?
Yeah, that's what we're working with right now. I think it stays there. It's a good facility. It fits what we need. We could have 2 championship games back to back there. So it would have the look of what semifinals would look like. They would be championships. So we could do a couple hours in between, something like that. We could do it depending on what our crowds look like. If we needed to have 2 hours in between to do a full crowd change, hopefully we're not dealing with all the stuff we deal with now and having to wipe down seats and everything else at that point. But depending on how we need to do that, we could adjust that schedule appropriately.
I think we should look into it going that route.
Okay, so 2 neutral sites for semis.
On the 24th.
And then 1 neutral site champ on the 26th.
And just a question about that 26th date. Is that date separate from every other championship day?
Right now it is.
Mhm.
But I also threw it on the calendar before everybody else to do that on purpose. So right now, unless somebody else double books, we should be by ourselves there on that date right now. And then what we'd look at doing is they have lights over there at that field. I think they.
At Peter Barton?
I was gonna say I think they do.
They do.
So we could do a 4 o'clock and a 7 o'clock, something like that. So get them both where they're late in the afternoon for fans to get there, things like that. Especially with 5A being mostly local because there's no West Slope really in 5A, so it'd be relatively local games for that evening game. They could get back home after the game. Your 4A games are ones that are going to have a little bit more travel potentially, and the earlier start time they could get back the same day.
I think it's a good idea.
Okay, we'll begin working on that. Well, Richard, we've kind of reached the end of our agenda.
This is a record for me, and I run field hockey meetings, which don't last very long. So
I mean, it's a unique situation with no games played. Is there anything else we need to add to the agenda to discuss? Anything that's a pressing matter for a sport that hasn't played a game in a year?
I don't know. I don't know if you're allowed to enlighten us, but variances that you're looking at for this year.
I would be following pretty close to what just came out for soccer for season C. I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. I also take the approach, I'm a don't ask, don't tell type of person. So if I can keep them pretty simple and loose, that's where I'm going to go with it. So my hope is that this will resemble as close to a normal season as possible. We're going to begin working on those actually. I'll begin working on that tomorrow. I'm going to Pueblo when this meeting's over to finalize stuff for state wrestling. And then tomorrow I've got season D variances to get completely written, and they'll be turned in the next week to the state so we can get those approvals out at some point. You never know what their timeline's going to be, but we want to get those in their hands by in the next week, I believe is what we're shooting for. So in my mind, it would be no mask while you're playing, mask on the sideline while you're not an active participant, and things of that nature. So shouldn't be anything that's too overwhelmingly different than normal.
Sounds good. Anybody have anything else for the good of the group?
Are we entertaining all those emails at all, or?
No, and I can give you some historical perspective, maybe not historical, but some information along those, just so you kind of have, since you've been copied on so many of those. We do have a letter that came from USA Lacrosse. I emailed USA Lacrosse and asked them to forward me the letters they sent to the other state associations. They didn't do that. So they only sent it to us because our state has one individual who is a large financial benefactor to USA Lacrosse. So that individual reached out to USA Lacrosse and asked them to write a letter to CHSAA. And so we received it. Again, it's not something they've sent anywhere else. Secondly, we've got to end by a certain date because all these tournaments are going on around the country and everything that's happening in the Northeast and all that stuff. 90+% of those tournaments back in the Northeast have been moved to July, and they still don't have approval to actually run their tournaments yet. So a lot of the information that we're being fed is not 100% accurate as far as where we're at as a sport and as a country. So with that, don't feel the need to respond to any of them. For those that continue to push or send multiple emails, I respond back with, our calendar is set and we're moving forward the way it's planned. And that's going to be our stance that to move it. I know Richard just mentioned another sport. If we move it to a different, if we move the season up, we're going to hurt another sport. And I don't believe it's right to make a kid have to choose between two sports of their own high school. I would much rather force a kid to make a choice between club and high school as opposed to two teams of their own high school. For me, that's just a philosophical piece where I stand, and I believe we stand as an association. So right now, there's no entertaining of moving the schedule. It's going to stay as is with the number of teams that qualify. While we only have eight teams on the bracket, that technically is the same number of teams that we had in the playoffs the last time we had playoffs 2 years ago. So we're not, while it's different because they're divided into classifications, we're not limiting really the number of teams that have postseason access that we would have previously. So there's no real change there either. So as of right now, until told otherwise, this is our season.
And along this lines for this year, how many playoff teams are we having? And Dix is texting me because he's having trouble talking.
Okay.
And so he was asking about a true 16 team bracket for this year.
So there'll be 8 teams that get in each classification. So it will be 16 teams, which is what we've had previously. It'll just be 8 in each classification, which is technically a 50% reduction in what it would have been. This is a unique one since we didn't play last year in this format. It's really not a reduction from the last time we played, but it is a 50% reduction in the number of teams, which is basically on par with what every sport has gone through this year with COVID and postseason and shortened season. So that aligns with our other sports and in the bulk of the percentages that have been cut for postseason brackets this year.
All right. Well, Martha jumped on here a little late. I hate to do this, but
Martha,
I think we're done
you
unless
missed
anybody has anything else.
Sorry, all I'm doing is running. I am now apparently in charge of plowing the field too, so I can't even, and since Larissa left, I am doing I'm doing everything for 25 sports, basically.
Oh, geez.
So needless to say, there will be some things that fall through the crack, and I will come 16 minutes late to a meeting that then I also have to leave in 8 more minutes. So yeah, I'm pretty useless right now.
All right, well, Martha, let's make you officially part of the meeting. I would say that you can make a motion
to do what?
Adjourn.
A motion.
Motion
Any
to
sort of
adjourn.
motion?
You can make the motion to adjourn because that's where we're at in the meeting now. So you'll officially be on the books as being here. Yeah.
Awesome. I make the motion for us to adjourn, and hopefully someone will fill me in on what I missed, and I apologize.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Wes. Martha, you didn't miss much. We just talked about dates for next year and splitting semifinals to 2 sites, 4A at one site, 5A at one site, and then the championship at both classifications at one site in 2022 on May 26th.
Okay, awesome.
That was the meeting in 30 seconds. That lasted 23 minutes.
And I did catch a little bit of the how we all got about 85,000 emails about changing the season.
Yes.
I just deleted them all, so thanks, Adam, for saying that we could do that.
Yep.
Sam,
Okay,
I would like it duly noted to Adam's co-commissioners that our meeting lasted officially 23 minutes as we take our all in favor of adjourning with a thumbs up at this vote right now. Thank you. We're going to take that as unanimous. Dix, I'm going to say that you voted in favor of adjourning. And unless anybody has anything to add, we are done.
Perfect. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
We'll have a longer one next year, I'm sure. But thanks for being here today. We'll see you guys out and about in the next few weeks.
Thank you.
Good day.
Thank you, everybody.
All
Bye,
right,
have a
bye-bye.
good one.